Good evening. It is Monday, May 20th, 2024. Welcome to episode 63 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. Tonight's broadcast will be covering a Homestead update, Q&A. Did you know? We will also have a segment asking you to decide if a random quote from one of our esteemed political representatives, what that quote was as far as from who it came from, a liberal or conservative. The weekly poll with the results from a multiple choice question asking which of these two government programs would you most like to keep. And for tonight's main topic, we will be giving our perspective of the traits most likely to be associated with highly successful people. I am joined once again by Rebecca. And how are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm good in the aspect that we got to have our granddaughter over to repaint a birdhouse that her mom had painted in high school. So it's getting a new face on the other side. I cleaned the pool looked great, and we have had some wicked wind. So
yeah, the wind has not been cool today. I heard it actually last night at some point in the middle of the night blowing, and I knew it was going to be a windy day today. Every time the wind blows from the north around here, it's high fire danger. And it's got me a little bit on edge because, we are not grazed off up front. And it's just one of those things around here in the North Valley. Whenever we get those high winds, the humidity drops, the temperatures go up, and the fire hazard is ever present. But one of the things that I've been making sure that I do this time of year, and I've done it every year for a lot of years, is make sure that I've got hoses around the perimeter where I would need to stretch a hose to should we have a start, whether it be in the daytime or the nighttime. The last thing you need to be doing is running around grabbing hoses if you've got a fire encroaching upon your property and you need to do a little bit of firefighting. So that's something that I've been working on as well. But
it's a life married to a fireman.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just something I'm pretty tuned into because of my background, and it's always something I'm thinking about for sure. But let's jump into the first segment. And the first segment is liberal or conservative. And that's where I am going to be reading a random quote coming from a politician. And now it's important to remember that these politicians are sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution, which is going to help guarantee our liberties and our freedoms and all of those sort of things. So as I read this quote to you, I want you to just bear that in mind, but it's up to you guys to determine who this came from. Was it a liberal or conservative? And at the end of the broadcast, I will reveal who that person was. So here's that quote. As to freedom, it is cherished. It is hard to come by. It is hard to hang on to. But freedom without responsibility is chaos. So those who push the idea that freedom would allow an individual to do anything, anywhere, at any time, I reject. Your freedom ends where my ability to raise my family safely begins. So I would urge every American to vaccinate their children, and I would reject any effort to stop vaccinations until someone can show me a scientific reason to do so. So, Rebecca, who would that be in your opinion?
Read that last line. So I would
urge every American to vaccinate their children, and I would reject any effort to stop vaccinations until someone can show me a scientific reason to do so.
I'm going to guess a liberal.
Okay, it's a pretty solid guess. Well, I'll let you think about that, and everybody else can ruminate on that one as well. But we're going to move on and talk about a little homestead update. And I finally feel like I'm getting caught up around here. I don't know. I've been scrambling for the last few weeks since I returned home from Tennessee. I felt that I was behind quite substantially, and now I feel like I'm getting a little bit more back into a regular routine. And for me, that regular routine involves making sure that I'm getting out and doing the things that I need to do physically as far as from a physical fitness standpoint. And given the fact that we're entering summer, that generally means that in order for me to get my runs in, I need to do that in the morning, unless I'm actually training for something that would require heat training. But I like to get up in the morning, go out, get my run in, come back around here, and I can, take care of the property. And it's just been a little bit nicer to feel like I'm getting back into that normal flow, because again, I think that, being somebody who can stay in shape, that's part of your prep, and that's part of my prep. And I'm glad to be back into that routine. But I've also been planting some things in the garden, getting caught up on that, and I'm getting more and more annuals in the ground. Planted an entire bed of beets, and also another bed. These are raised beds I'm talking about. Another raised bed of cucumbers as well, both pickling and eating. It's something that we eat around here, or at least I eat. She doesn't eat beets. I eat beets, and it's nice to have those all year long. So I make sure that I grow enough that I'm able to have that, on a year-round basis in my salad and whenever else I want to eat it or what have you. And the same for dill pickles and stuff like that. So got those things planted, not only eating cukes, we got some lemon cukes in, and then the pickling cucumbers and all of those sort of things.
So is this the first time we've grown lemon cucumbers before?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, we had lemon cukes, and I really liked them. They're great. They just taste better to me than the regular like green ones. I just like them better from the standpoint of eating them fresh, but they go really great with like, your tomatoes and your basil and a little olive oil and balsamic or something like that. But yeah, no, that's not the first time we grew them. I just didn't really get any. Yeah, I didn't get any in the ground last year, and yeah, we'll see how it goes this year. But yeah, I've been moving a lot of compost out of the chicken yard, and I've been probably taking 1 to 2 wheelbarrows every day out of there right now. And I've been focusing on getting those, areas that I'm trying to get things developed, top dressed. And so it's nice to be able to be using that compost that started out in there some, 7 to 8 months ago, and keeping it isolated from the chickens so that the chickens aren't going to be able to go in there and put their manure in it and then just tear it all up and stuff. So it's been covered for, about a month at this point, but I've been drawing out of that, and I've been amending certain things around here. And yeah, it's nice. The plan for the orchard area out there is I've been prepping those mounds as well and taking out some of the winter stuff that I had planted in there. And all of the things that had flowered, like I had planted some daikon radish, I had planted some mustard, some triticale, some, what else did I plant in there? Oh yeah, crimson clover, a lot of crimson clover. And so all of that stuff came up, it flowered, and it now went to seed, and I'm allowing that seed to basically just drop in place. But I'm coming and I'm amending with that compost that I've been making here, and just trying to encourage things to grow in that space. And I've still got a lot of opportunity and potential out there to do different things that I haven't really solidified in my own mind about, how I want to proceed with that. But the plan for this year is again to drop in a bunch of sprawling type crops. So things like squash, mainly pumpkin. I want to be able to have like a pumpkin patch out there for the grandkids to come and collect pumpkins and whatnot, or what. And that's what I had intended on doing last year, along with having a bunch of watermelon in that space where it's just going to have the ability to grow out of those mounds and then spread out in that orchard area. The problem that I ran into last year is I was battling a bunch of gophers, and what gophers will do is they'll actually come in and get pretty sneaky if you allow them to, and they'll drill right into your squash, and they'll eat the insides of your squash out, and you think you've got a pumpkin sitting there, and then you pick it up and there's nothing in it. And so yeah, so I had a bunch of that last year, and I had a bunch of stuff that was just chewed off right at the ground level, where you get a vine starting to take off. And then I had, I'm not exactly sure what did it last year, if it was a squash vine borer or what I had in there, but I want to try to do a little bit better in there this year. And that's kind of what I've been focusing on. Also been planting things like just dropping in cilantro seed, and planting more dill, and transplanting some yarrow. Yarrow is something that grows pretty well. Once you get it established, it's very easy to dig it up and then just, plant it elsewhere. And I love having those types of flowers, those tiny little flower clusters they're not only going to bring in all of the pollinators, and but they're also going to bring in a lot of the parasitic insects and things like that that are going to help you with dealing with some of the pests that you're going to have. So it's really great to try to have things flowering at all times, and we're able to do that here in this zone. Zone 9A is very temperate. I've got a lot of things that other people can't necessarily overwinter, but here it's actually pretty easy to do because we don't get temperatures that typically fall below about 28 degrees Fahrenheit. And so, I've got plants that are only supposed to be an annual or a year old, and or just go through the season, but they wind up going all the way through the winter, and they'll produce flower all year long for me. And that's really what I want to try to get established around here. So I've been planting a lot of those sort of things. I also planted some crane melon, and crane melon is it's an heirloom variety melon that was developed by the Crane family back around the turn of the century. And I had gotten some seed from my daddy, years ago, but I let that seed go. I wound up getting some more of it from my son-in-law, who got some from my dad. And so now I have this seed again, and I've been planting that stuff here. But it's a really good melon. If you don't know anything about it, it's a hybridized melon. It's a cultivar that was created, and they don't really tell you exactly what it was. But it thing I can kind of describe it as is it's like a cross between a cantaloupe and a honeydew. And so it has a very unique flavor. It's orange in color. The outside flesh is kind of interesting looking, but they don't really tell you what they crossed to get that pretty cool melon, but it's something that originated again from Sonoma County. That's where I grew up. And it's kind of a unique melon, but I planted some of that this year too.
So when we moved here, we'd actually lived here for a good chunk of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a plant come up that grew a melon.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because what you're describing is very similar to, we had no idea what this plant was, but we went ahead and ate the melon.
Yeah, no, it was, that was probably just a melon. How are you doing, Cindy? Good to see you. I hope things are well with you. And good to see you tonight. That I don't know what it actually was. It actually grew really well because it was growing in like the leach line out by our septic tank.
Yum.
So it was delicious. But no, I don't know what kind of melon that was, but it was obviously something that a bird probably or something, somehow that seed got there. But yeah, that was.
It was a one-time thing though. We had it that one year, and we've never had it since. Yeah,
it's kind of fun, man. I like, I try to really study my property as far as that's concerned, just looking at things that, are starting to take shape in the areas where I'm actually trying to encourage things to grow, because random seeds will just like show up and I don't always know what they are. There'll be something that comes up, and then I try to identify it and see if it's something I want to keep or what in fact it actually is. And a lot of times it's just some kind of a weed, some herbaceous type weed that, is more or less something I don't want to continually spread. But then there's, other times where a bird will drop a seed or something that actually, you wouldn't mind having it in that area. So you just kind of like, it's fun to see what shows up on your property, but you only know that, and you only learn those things when you're actually observing. Being observant is super important when you're on your property, because things will happen and you will not even know it. You won't pay attention to it. So observation and interaction, again, that is one of permaculture's 12 principles. So let's see what else we got going on here.
Hello, Skanes girl, by the way.
Yeah. Hope it is going good out your way, Cindy. I've been doing some tissue damage or wound repair on some of the trees that I have too. Some of the younger trees that I've put in. You have to be somewhat gingerly when you're handling them, and don't try to damage the tissue on their trunks and things like that, because they're no different than us. They will do their best to heal those cuts and those abrasions and those things like that, but it's just a portal of entry for infection for those, for any kind of a disease to enter or parasites or any of those sort of things. So I've been going around trying to do some tissue damage. And I actually have a video that I'm going to probably be putting together on a tree that I'm trying to do some repair on. And then I'm also doing some companion planting. So if that's something that people are interested in, be looking forward for that for the next couple of weeks. But I've been doing some tissue damage or doing some repair on some of that tissue damage, and then also whitewashing some of the trunks on my trees, where that's something that is not, it's not essential that you do, but it certainly can help, particularly with younger fruit trees. Again, their tissue has not yet formed bark. They're going to be a lot more susceptible to sun scald. They're going to be more susceptible to other environmental factors. It will definitely help to radiate the sunlight away a little bit more, keeping that tissue cooler. And then it also will inhibit or potentially be a deterrent to bugs and other things that might want to bore into your tree. So it's just kind of a good thing to do. And, I'm sure you guys have probably seen trees that have the lower portion of the trunk, painted up maybe 18 to 24 inches from ground level going up. And essentially that's what it is. It's just whitewashing. And I use just a house interior paint, white latex. And I just dilute it 50-50. So 50% water, 50% paint, and then just paint it on and whitewash it.
That noise was our dog adding her contribution to the conversation.
Yeah, she's moving all over the place. But yeah, and then I also harvested some of my garlic today. I started a couple days ago, but I got a little bit more of it out today. I got all my soft neck garlic harvested, and it's been in 8 months. Garlic is an 8-month crop. Generally speaking, depending on which variety you get and, what kind of a weather conditions you have and all of those sort of things, how much rain you've had and, everything associated with, the development of the garlic itself. But generally speaking, about 8 months. And I plant my garlic around here about September 15th. So we're 8 months into the thing. And I've actually got some of that garlic that's a little bit long in the tooth. It could have come out a little bit earlier, quite honestly, but I got all that soft neck harvested, and then I still got the hard neck garlic out there to contend with. But I've been working on that as well. And that's about it for me on the homestead front for this week. What do you got, Rebecca? You been doing anything?
I've been making soap like crazy to get that all restocked and hopefully back up on the webpage, the website. And making jam.
Well, I'll tell you what, before you go on to anything else, I'll just tell you that I did put that back on the website live. So if anybody's interested in buying of any of the soap that she's made, and it's the espresso self, which, I mean, that's my favorite soap that you've made. And people seem to like it pretty well. We had to actually take it off for a time just because we ran out, but you've got enough bars now where you feel comfortable being able to put it back up. So I did put that on the site today. So it is live. And if anybody wants to check it out, Porterhouse and Teal Live.
Yeah.
Or porterhouseandteal.com, right?
Yeah. We also have the biochar bliss.
Which is not on the website, though.
Which is not on the website, but there are bars that are available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what else you got going on? You were mentioning something about jam.
Oh, yes. We're trying to keep up with our Pakistan mulberries. So I've been making jam like crazy. And in that, we have strawberries that are coming in and we have loganberries that are coming in. So I'll be spending quite a bit of time making jam. Yeah,
that's something that's kind of cool this time of year for us, I guess. I don't know if any of the rest of you are dealing with berry season at this time of year, but it's one of the first things that'll come into ripeness for us. And generally speaking, in May, the Pakistan mulberry, we've been harvesting off that for a couple of weeks now. And every day you can go out there and pull a few more off. But, generally speaking, if you don't keep up with that, then they fall to the chickens and the chickens get them, which they don't mind.
They have no problem whatsoever.
Right. Right. And here, hold that up so I'm not kicking it. And I've got more Pakistan mulberry and other mulberry out in the field that I've planted, and it's only on its second year. It's not thriving like it is in the chicken yard. Obviously, there's a much greater level of fertility in the chicken yard, so things are booming there. But yeah, we're just trying to get things, moving in that direction. But yeah, the jam season is on for sure.
Definitely.
Anything else?
Of course, there'll be other things that we'll be pickling.
Anything else to report?
Not that I can think of right this moment, other than just trying to get all of that stuff in place. And then I'm sure that there'll be more to move on to.
Yeah, right on. Hey, what's going on? Yeah, good to see you. The Roar Tribe. Love it. Glad you like the soap.
Thank you.
Probably be reaching out. I just want to get some more feedback from you guys on, what you liked and what maybe you might want to see a little different or what have you. But I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it. But I definitely will be reaching out for sure. Thanks again.
Or even if there's particular fragrance that somebody'd like to see me make, I'm more than open to giving that a shot.
Yeah. We're always up for input for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I'm going to jump right into the question and answer segment of this evening's broadcast. And let me pull up something here. So first thing I'm going to cover is last week I put out a video on, it was a scarification experiment that I had started. And, started at about 5 or so. It's been about 6 months, I guess, when it started. And I put that video out, and I had a question from DR Green, and he said, seed starting, soil or compost? Your pots you filled up, do you sunbake your used soil that was once in a container? And I use potting soil for starting. I don't mix compost with the potting soil. I just use, if I'm doing seed starting, if I'm, doing transplants, I might do something different as far as adding some compost in it. But if I'm just trying to start seeds from start, I just use pure potting soil. And I've got plenty of it. I was able to get some of that. I got an entire pallet for $15. And that was a sweet deal that we came across at Home Depot, where Home Depot had some damaged, torn sacks. And we just asked the question, and they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, take this out of here." It was an entire pallet that we paid $15 for. And so we took that off their hands. I got more than enough of that to last me for a while. The only problem with it is after a while it becomes hydrophobic, so you have to go ahead and rehydrate it. But it's still been sterilized. All this potting soil that you'll get commercially comes, and it's been sterilized before it goes into the bag. Now, of course, some of these bags have been ripped or torn or what have you, but I'm not extremely concerned about any bad bacteria or pathogens as a result of a tear in the bag. But I think what he was referring to is he wanted to know if I was actually reusing soil to start those seeds. And I don't reuse my soil. If I start something or I use soil in a pot, I'll take that old soil out and I will reintroduce it into the chicken yard. I basically just recycle it, put it back into the chicken yard, allow it to be additional organic material that is going to break down and eventually, be added to the compost that I make. So I think that was the question that he was kind of getting after. He didn't really specify what he was looking for an answer, but that's a more detailed version of the explanation that I gave him. Let's see here. Next question. Right on. Yeah. I love to hear that. Yeah.
Nice.
She loves to hear it too. Look at her.
Yes.
Look at her. She's the one that's making it. So she likes to hear when people like her stuff.
It smells like candy.
Yeah. Yeah. What's up, Loco? How you doing, man? Good evening. Great to see you. Hope you're well. Hope everything is going good. The next question I have is somebody had asked the question. It was Jeremy Yelizar, 6628. and said, "What is the purpose of diatomaceous earth being added to your chicken coop? Great content." And I said, "Thanks. So glad you like the video. In short, I use it for parasite control. Here's a video further detailing my coop cleaning regimen with a further explanation on how DE works." And I just basically provided him a link to a video that I had done probably it's almost about a year ago, if not more. And it's interesting that video really didn't do like extremely well for quite some time. It just kind of had a little bump and then it just kind of languished for some time. And then all of a sudden it started to take off and people really liked that video. And that's kind of what happens when YouTube starts finding the right fit for your content. And that's what happened with that particular video. And it's been doing well. It's not like blowing up like some other people's channel. But as I tried to tell people when I was in Tennessee speaking about content creation, it's best if you compare yourself against yourself rather than comparing yourself against others. So how is that content performing based on how some of your other content has been performing? But nonetheless, what my answer to Jeremy was, what I wanted to basically, I guess, further reiterate to this audience is that diatomaceous earth, specifically food grade diatomaceous earth, is basically what it is it's like prehistoric fossils that they gather and then they grind them up. They're diatomic fossils that they grind up, and that material that's very fine becomes like little tiny razor blades. And so it can be a very effective way to control insects and parasites and things like that. So it's non-toxic, it's safe around animals, it's safe around, your pets, it's safe around you. It's actually food grade. The problem that you might have if you have some kind of a respiratory issue is you might want to protect, it from an inhalation hazard. But how it works is those tiny little razor blades, if you will, can scratch the exoskeleton, and they put a bunch of little micro cuts in the exoskeleton of things like mites, which chickens can be very susceptible from the standpoint of parasites with mites. And so that's why I use it. And I use it in their coops, on their roosting bars. I use it around the perimeter on the inside. And I use it somewhat sparingly because it also can affect worms, and it can affect, if you're using it in high quantities. But basically what it does is it puts all these little micro cuts on their exoskeleton, and then they essentially die from dehydration. But it's a non-toxic way for parasite control or insect control. It'll kill spiders, it'll kill ants, it'll kill all kinds of different invertebrates. And so essentially that's kind of why I use diatomaceous earth. And I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Now this last question, it kind of dovetails into the weekly poll for this week. And the weekly poll was hypothetically asking you, which of these government programs would you like to keep? Because one of them is going to be eliminated. And the two different things were the interstate highway system and the National Park Service. And I got some comments, if I can find it. And so one of the persons, his name was Bradley Collins, and he basically said, rather than getting rid of any of those two things, the National Park Service or the interstate highway system, he'd rather get rid of 90% of the military any day. And so I just responded back to him and I said, what's the 10% you would keep? And he responded back and said, troops helping with relief efforts, probably some Navy ships in or near our larger ports. I feel like the U.S. having so much military in so many other countries is counterproductive. Why are we spending trillions on military when we have so many huge issues on our soil? And I just responded back to him and I said, you are correct, sir. Spending is out of control and the focus on foreign soil is misplaced, in my opinion, as well. And so, yeah, I'm not in disagreement with that, quite honestly. I don't know. What's your thoughts on the whole reducing the size of our military and or bringing people back on our soil to deal with problems we may have here?
I don't disagree with that. I believe that we need to take care of our people first before we're shipping them out anywhere else. And we've got plenty of problems here.
Right. Yeah, there was some interesting responses. I had a few people who responded in the comment section on that particular poll, and yeah, people had varied opinions on it, I think. But basically, I'll just reread the question, and the question was, again, hypothetically, one of these government programs is about to be eliminated. Which would you keep? And I chose these two things because there are a good number of government programs that I think most people would agree that we're a little top heavy as far as from the standpoint of bureaucracy. And many of those programs, many programs could probably be eliminated and not be too impactful for, most of us. But the interstate highway system and the National Park Service are a couple of programs that I actually think are pretty valid and vital for the health of this country and our nation. I didn't think it would be an easy choice for people, and I hope it stimulated some thought. But it broke down as follows. The National Park Service was the one that people like to keep by 65%. And the interstate highway system came in with 35% of the vote. And that was actually a little bit surprising to me as far as how that shook out. And there was 113 votes on this one. What would you, Rebecca, what would you say that you would keep of these two governmental programs?
That's a very difficult one because you and I both personally.
You got to speak into the microphone.
You and I both have personally used both. And we find the National Park Service quite useful. However, getting around, it's nice to have the highway system. So that is, I would say the National Park Service.
Okay. Yeah, I would as well. Quite honestly, I didn't know. How are most people going to get to the national parks without highways? That's a good question. But here's the way that I think about it. If either of those two things was eliminated, chances are that man would do something to replace it with. And if the interstate highway system is something that is vital to this, the economy and everything that we're doing today, man would find a way to make something to replace it with. The problem that I see with the National Park Service is that they wouldn't possibly preserve what's already been preserved. And I think it's really important to, rather than taking the National Park Service and abolishing it and allowing man to come in and say, well, let's build a shopping mall in here, or let's mine this for its resources, or let's do it for this. I think that would be more of the inclination because there would be money to be made. And I don't know if all of the monuments and public spaces would be preserved. And I think it's an important thing to do for future generations to have the opportunity to not have things, be encumbered by man. Because I am somebody who's gone to a lot of these parks, and I like to be able to go to these places and still see them preserved in a way that's not being just desecrated by somebody building some shit there. Because that's what we as, people do, is we like destroy what's there and put something there and think, oh, it's beautiful. But most people don't realize, but San Francisco and New York used to be wilderness, right? Until it became concrete. And so that's just something that I think that is important to do. And maybe they would come in and have another privately funded, thing that's going to preserve all these monuments and public spaces, but I kind of highly doubt it. Now what would happen if they got rid of the interstate highway system? Well, the states that were unwilling to, put up the funds to maintain those roads, they would suffer because people wouldn't bring commerce into their state, right? So they would probably get their shit together.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't know how it would play out. I don't think any of us do, but like I say, that's how I see it. And I would prefer to have future generations have something that they can appreciate instead of us just always, building something there. So,
yeah, we need people to come through and visit the different places, and they've got to get there somehow. So that's what makes your town or your city prosperous is people coming and visiting and purchasing.
mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think that the roads would carry on.
They'd find
some way.
They'd find
some
a way.
Fashion.
They'd find a way to. It is pretty nice. So I have to say, when I get in my car and I drive to Tennessee, you go across state lines, you don't even realize you're going across a state line. There's no change in the roads. It's all, it's all uniform, and that's a very nice thing to have for interstate commerce and being able to travel from place to place. But, I think that man would find a way to make those roads passable, and they would want people to come to their states. So Nevada wouldn't just say, oh, that's not a priority for us. They'd be like, yeah, we better keep our roads up or nobody's coming here. We're not going to get any commerce, right? So I don't know. That's just my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, Elusive? How are you?
Hi.
Harvested the last, making some chili jam. What is chili jam? You ever heard of chili jam, Rebecca?
I have not.
Yeah,
I have to be honest on that one. I have not heard of chili jam.
You have to enlighten us as to what chili jam is, man. I'm kind of in the dark on that one. Maybe that's a across the pond thing, eh? Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that one, but cool, man. Good evening.
Sounds kind of spicy.
Yes, it does. Yes, it did. So let's jump into Did You Know? And Rebecca has this evening's Did You Know?
I do. Did you know that in 1921, Wheaties brand cereal was invented? And because I would probably stumble over trying to get all the information out, we're going to play a video to take you on this journey.
Right, here you go.
How did a cereal advertised with a 1926 radio jingle become the breakfast of champions? Wheaties were created by accident when some wheat bran mixture spilled onto a hot stove in 1921. But it took Minneapolis's Washburn Crosby Company 36 attempts to perfect their cold cereal. When it was finally released in 1924, it was named Washburn's Gold Medal Whole Wheat Flakes, but was changed to Wheaties after a company contest. At first, the product wasn't really selling, except in markets where they were advertising on radio. So they purchased a radio station and renamed it WCCO after the company's name. On Christmas Eve 1926, a quartet sang about Wheaties in the first ever commercial radio jingle. Throughout the 1930s, Wheaties increased in popularity with sponsorships of baseball broadcasting, and in 1934 they featured Lou Gehrig on the back of their cereal box. In 1939, they became the first cereal advertised on television in the first televised baseball game. So many baseball players endorsed the cereal that 46 of the 51 players in that year's All-Star game had contracts with Wheaties. It was these athlete testimonials that really hit home that Wheaties was, in fact, the breakfast of champions.
And you know what sparks a champion sparks you, and champions choose Wheaties.
Yeah, there you go. That's pretty cool. I mean, Lou Gehrig was on the thing, right? And you know who else was on there? Caitlyn Jenner.
Well, I don't think she was Caitlyn at the time.
Okay, Bruce Jenner. Yeah.
But there's also a Did You Know? In 1966, Radio Row was torn down to make room for the World Trade Center.
Right. So where all that was being done and manufactured was eventually became the site of the World Trade Center, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the World Trade Center, we're looking at that, and what was it, like
1966 is when they tore it down. The World Trade Center, I believe, went up in 1968.
Wow. Yeah, and then the bastards tore it down again. Yeah. Well, I hope that was loud enough for you guys to hear, because it kind of sounded like the audio wasn't quite as loud as what we are speaking, but I hope you guys can hear that. And let's see here. Chili jam. Chili jam is delicious, says Old McDonald. I got to try that, man. I don't know what it is. Do you make it out of chilies or like actual like chilies or something? Or it sounds kind of good. I don't even know what it is though. Is it spicy sweetness or what are we talking here? Oh, there it is right there. Spicy sweet goodness, chili jam. Okay. Yeah, we'll have to look into that. Maybe we can make some chili jam. Yeah, I don't think it was an easy choice either, Scanes. I guess that's why I chose it, just because, I didn't want to make it too obvious, but that's a hard thing to choose, I think. What's up, Hogs 14? How are you doing, man? Let's see. Skane says she chose the highways. Yeah, highways, man. I mean, it's an important thing, being able to get from place to place. Yeah, it's not an easy one to choose, for sure.
Yeah, I think for us, because we spend a lot of time in the parks.
Yeah. I mean, not a lot of people maybe go to these places, but just having that land there that's not being desecrated by man is just so like valuable. Because if it wasn't, it'd be bought up by Bill Gates and it'd be bought up by whoever else, and who knows what they're going to do with it long term. And there's so much that needs to be preserved, I think, for future generations. Or what are you doing with the land? You're just tearing it up.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's some beautiful scenery that can be seen in these parks and out and on trails. And
yeah, the best part is
amazing.
The best part is getting away from where people are, because a lot of these parks, it's easy to go and you get off the tour bus and everything's right kind of close by, all the really cool stuff to see. But like when you can actually physically, get away from people, that's where you see the real beauty. And it's just nice to be out there. Potpourri of Life. How are you doing, Laura? Great to see you. Great to see you this evening. Hope things are well. Let's see here. So I think we'll jump into the main topic. And tonight we'll be discussing the traits and characteristics associated with the highly successful. And this is purely just our assessment of what it takes to be successful. I think it's important to start out by acknowledging everybody's success is going to be individually defined for themselves. Because there are people that have very little economic prosperity or security, and they're completely happy. They're completely content with their life, and they view themselves as being successful, no doubt. So again, it's very individually defined. And I think we all tend to fall prey to the comparison trap. And we do it to one extent or another. We're always looking at what the Jones has. We're looking at across the street. We're looking and we're measuring our own success in life based on the world around us. And that can be like a double-edged sword, because if you're never willing to commit to actually doing anything with that comparison, it can be kind of mentally debilitating, because if all you ever do is look at what other people have and you don't ever want to use that as a tool to uplift yourself, because it can also be very uplifting to be able to take that inspiration from other successful people and impart it to yourself and make yourself a better person. And it's just it's a really important thing to be able to do, is to try to capitalize on those comparisons, because it's hard to, go through life and not be looking at everybody around you and making those comparisons. I've often thought, how happy would you be? How would you view your own success if everybody around you was so much better? What would you do? Would you stay where you are, or would you actually lift yourself up? Take yourself where you're at in your neighborhood and look around and realize that, hey, you know what? My place is the worst in this entire county. You're middle class, thing, and you look around and you go, man, well, I either need to up my game or whatever. But it's easy to kind of get to that level of complacency when we look around and everybody else's shit looks just like ours, right? We reach that level of comfort. And so there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just the reality of comparison. Would you not agree, Rebecca?
I would agree. I definitely would agree. There's plenty of people who, in that situation where everybody else's stuff is around them, all the stuff that are around them, all their neighbors and whatnot, have nicer things than they do. It's easy to say, "Oh, poor me. I guess this is what I was dealt with," instead of saying, "Gee, maybe I should get out and improve myself. Maybe I should mow my lawn. Maybe I should take care of what I do have."
Yeah. Yeah. I just think that it's, not everybody even wants a lawn. So I get it, but it's just really important to, capitalize on other people's success and translate that to yourself. It can be very empowering. It can motivate you to do things that you didn't know you had the ability to do or didn't even want to do. That's one of the things about social media that has done. It has shown people like, oh, hey, I can do these things. And therefore certain industries have actually exploded as a result of that. You would have here's one thing, for example, ultra running. Nobody did that back in the day before there was social media. You know why? Because it was hard and it was just fringe. But now there's an entire industry of people doing these things. And the reason why is because there's people who are watching others do it and they're saying, you know what, I can do that shit too. And they go out and they do it. And that's just the reality of it. I mean, when I started, it was kind of monkey see, monkey do. When I first got into it, it was the whole social media thing. But prior to that, nobody was even watching. And if guys were running these races, they had to come up with shit that they didn't even have like designed to do. Like when they used to run Western States 100 back in the day, they used to use for their water bottles, they would use log cabin syrup bottles because they had the little handle in them, and then they'd wrap them up with duct tape and shit like that. And that's how they would use, for their water and stuff. But see, in a very short period of time, that has all transitioned because of this ability to compare yourself to others and go, hey, I can do that too. Now there's entire industries of water bottles for people to use in these types of sports. And it's just exploding, so it's interesting to watch. But
however, you didn't start out just doing the ultra marathons.
No.
You started out doing a 5K, which is the 3.2
3.1
miles, 3.1 miles.
Yeah.
And then kind of moving up to a 10K and so forth.
Right.
You did skip over the marathon and went into the ultra.
Right.
And he kind of pulled me into that. I was really surprised. We did what's called Nanny Goat, and it is a race on a ranch that, for the most part, the ground is level, and it's a 1 mile loop, and it goes through a barn. So there's just one aid station. I personally didn't think that I would be able to do an ultra. When I decided, because I was doing the 12 hour. So basically in that 12 hours, it's just how many miles can you do in that? And then Eric was doing the 24. When I decided to stop, unbeknownst to me, I had actually made it around 31 times. So 31 miles, which is then considered an ultra marathon because it's beyond what a marathon would be. And then you take that and you think, well, you're exhausted. But it's crazy because it only takes a day or 2 days and you're like, hey, I did that. That's not so bad. Maybe I'll do it again. Right. Okay. That's a little crazy in the brain, but, anyway, Eric brought me into that. I never made it up to the 100 miles that he did, but I did do one 100K, which is 63 miles or 62.
62. Yeah.
62.
Yeah. She's done great. I mean, and again, I want to talk a little bit about that as we move forward, as far as just, having some of these different traits and people who are able to hone in on those skills and those traits are people I actually look to for inspiration. And I think that our society, there are many people who are highly successful and others look up to for what they've been able to achieve in their field or line of work. And what causes them to be successful is a combination of different traits that are commonly shared by many people who operate at, a very high level. There are many people who operate at this level that we all can know by name recognition, people like, Michael and Tiger and, people like that. But there are many others very successful in their own right who just don't have that type of name recognition. And generally speaking, I think that we define highly successful people as who've made a lot of money. And money, in my opinion, isn't what drives or defines success, but it certainly puts you in a position to be able to live your life according to how you want to live it. And it can open doors for you to become even more successful. And not only that, it can help you empower and uplift other people with that success. So I think the first thing that, as far as from a trait standpoint, that people have that are successful is, I would say that it's, this is, again, in no particular order, but the first one that I think that I want to mention is just people who are goal oriented. And if you find yourself being somebody who is proactive, organized, decisive, you may be somebody who tends to be somewhat goal oriented. And, also goal oriented people tend to be type A personalities. I think that aligns with people who are driven. They are competitive, they are ambitious, and they have an emphasis on control and delegation. Would you not agree with that, or would you agree with that, Rebecca?
Kind of sounds like you're describing yourself.
What was it, the control or the delegation?
All of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you have to have, and you have to possess those things, you have to have that, you have to have a certain level of confidence and just drive. And I think it's, important to, have goals. And if you don't have goals, you're never going to achieve the things in life that you want. And so I think that that's the first thing, is you have to have goals. But also too, people, and these aren't traits, I would just say that people have to know what their reason why they're doing something is. Everybody who is successful knows what their reason why is, because if you don't know your reason why, you will find every other excuse as to why not to do the things that, are going to help you achieve your goals. And so I think that that's something that's important. People have to know what their reason why is. The next trait, and I would say that, in my opinion, is probably one of the most important traits to have, is mental toughness. And I say this because most of what I think we encounter in life requires more mental toughness than physical toughness. Most of the barriers people place upon themselves is because they have already accepted they can't do something before they've even started. And, this goes back to what she was just talking about as far as her signing up for that race. And, you probably didn't think you could do 31 miles. You didn't think you could go that far, did you? You probably never thought you would be able to do a 50 miler, but yet you've done one. You probably never thought you'd be able to do 100 kilometers. And by that 50 miler you did in Indiana, you crushed it. I mean, your time was solid. So I was very proud of you. And
that was in the pouring down rain. That was a crazy race.
I think you got off the course before it started raining, because
No, it was
hammering
down. But you were out there much longer, so you were a lot more soaked.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. But nonetheless, it's all in the mind. I think a lot of, the barriers, it's just because they've already defeated themselves. And what will teach you to overcome this is to go out there and physically challenge yourself to do something that you think is outside your capability. Because if you are committed, if you're committed to the idea, And if you're driven and passionate toward achieving your goal, I can almost assure you that you will surprise yourself. That's one of the reasons why I kept going up and challenging myself further. I hated running, guys. But now,
No, he actually likes it. Don't.
no, I like it now. But I actually, for the first 40 years of my life, I hated running. But what it's helped to do is it's helped me to realize that I can overcome obstacles. And it was really more about my mental toughness than my physical toughness. Sure, it's a physical thing to go out there and to put your body through, but so much of it is actually mental. And so I think that mental toughness is just a key asset of people that are highly successful. And because when you develop it, you'll be able to push past the limits you thought you had and be able to handle pressures and stay focused on your goals when things get difficult.
A funny story about the Indiana race.
Mm-hmm.
And it was raining when I was out there. One of the things they gave us in the swag bag was some white cotton gloves. Why white? That's beyond me. But anyway, it was raining and we're on this trail and the trail was wet and the mud was really slick. And I fell down and I couldn't get up. I mean, there was nothing for me to grab hold of to get back up. Every time I tried, I'd just slip and fall down. There was a girl who stopped and she actually helped me get up. And I'm standing there with both hands up by my head and they're just caked full of just mud. And this guy comes by with his nice, clean white hand and he gives me a high five. And all I could say to him is, dude, that's never coming out of those gloves.
Yeah. That was a pretty gnarly night, man. It hammered. Laura says, I think success is the result of moving past challenges, focusing on our goals and not allowing others to put a roadblock in your way or our way. Yes, all of those things for sure. I mean, again, it's just about persistence. It's about dedication. It's about knowing where you're going, what your goals are, how are you going to get there, and then pushing past the challenges that are there. And that's super important. Let's see here. Well, McDonald says mental toughness is such an underrated attribute in our culture right now. Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue. There's so many people out there that are doing good things and so many people of every generation that are exceptional people. I think they're obviously the generations are getting softer as we've talked about before, but mental toughness is one of those things that you need to find something that allows you to be mentally tough. And the only way that I think you get that is to, it's something that you have to want. You have to want to push through, and it's all in your mind that you can't do it. It's an incredible thing, man. Like doing the ultras for me, because that's what it does is it teaches you, man, I'm stronger than I thought I was stronger. I'm stronger than I thought I was because I actually did that. And then it's just so empowering. It's hard to describe.
Well, I think part of that too is when you're doing those races, it's a little bit different than a marathon where everybody is just out to win. Mm-hmm. And the ultras where the challenge is with yourself. Well, to get there.
No, that's not. You can say that about any race, Rebecca. I mean, seriously.
Well, I'm referring to the people who are also out there. They are encouraging. Like if somebody passes you, they're like, "Hey, you're doing great. Keep it up." We don't necessarily hear that in a marathon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just depends on the race and the context and all of that. There's people who are highly competitive that are actually really, really at the top of their, and then there's other people out there that are just trying to do the thing. And when I see people out there just trying to do the thing, they might be a little overweight. They might be a little out of shape. Those are the people that I actually get inspired by. It's fun to watch the elites. It's fun to watch the people that are just like, wow, that's impressive. But then it's also really cool to hang around and watch people that are just finishing up. Remember when we were at the Napa Valley Marathon and they were taking the arches down? Mm-hmm. It almost brought tears to my eyes. They were bringing the
It was almost completely deflated.
Well, yeah, they were taking the thing down, but this person, and they weren't going to get a medal, but they were still running, and they had their family there, and their family was like, cheering them on, and it was just like, man, I was just like getting choked up thinking about it because they're putting everything they had into that, and so I don't know, it's pretty cool to see people who are willing to go out there and to push themselves beyond what they thought, and what that does is it builds that mental toughness. It builds that confidence in themselves. And so that's what successful people have, but you have to be able to be willing to go out there and find something that's going to allow you to experience that. And it doesn't have to be, in athletics. It can be in a lot of different things that you can find that inspiration. But like when you tap into that, it's like, man, this is super cool,
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. I think that the next trait that aligns pretty closely with mental toughness is just discipline and dedication. Dedicated people, they invest time, they invest the effort and focus to achieve what they set out to do, whether it's in their personal life or whether it's in relationships or what have you. Dedication definitely drives progress. And discipline, on the other hand, it involves more self-control and just being consistent in what you're doing. Disciplined individuals are people that typically follow routines and they prioritize responsibilities for themselves. And, they tend to resist distractions because they're more disciplined. And having the recognition that short-term sacrifice leads to long-term rewards. And I think that's, an important takeaway from being disciplined. That I often say sometimes on here that Rome wasn't built in a day, and that's what comes to mind with respect to consistency and discipline. And it's one of the reasons that I consistently repeat the mantra on this channel to go out and be better tomorrow than you were today, because it's so easy to become distracted with all of the noise that we have that's constantly thrown at us. But if you stay focused and remain disciplined and dedicated to the things that you're working toward, it's just one more small building block on becoming the success that you want to be. And I don't know. What do you think, Rebecca?
I agree. I also agree that you just moved that motivation is part of it too.
Yeah, I was going to try to get caught up on some of this stuff here. Let me see what's going on here.
And I think a lot of that can be taught to your children while they're growing up. I mean, one of the things that I know I personally always said when our kids wanted to get involved in something, I told them, you're not going to go one or two times and then say, I'm going to drop out. You're going to ride it through.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were very good. If you were going to be a cheerleader, you weren't going to get there and have some girls pick on you and, I don't want to do it anymore. You're going to be the cheerleader for the whole season. Or, that's an example. But our kids were in other sports too.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very good. They stuck with it. And maybe they didn't take it next year, but they stuck with it and knew what they wanted and what they didn't, and didn't drop out.
Mm-hmm. It's important. It's important.
It's something that definitely is taught first at home.
Yeah. Old McDonald says, I think social media, keeping up with the Jones, is a double-edged sword. Pursuit in bettering your life. Health is good, but pursuit of pride, social status leads to a dark pit. Yeah. I think it's again, like I was saying earlier, if you use it to the betterment of yourself with regard to comparison, it can be very, very powerful, and it can also help to inspire you to be a better version of yourself. However, on the other hand, like you said, it could certainly not be in that way. I think it's caused a lot of people to have a lot of insecurities and things that they're dealing with as a result of seeing everybody's perfect life, that nobody makes mistakes and everybody, succeeds except them, because the reality of most of our lives isn't what you see on social media. And so, yeah, I agree, man. I think that social media, we would all be better off if it didn't exist. We would all be better off if we went back to Rolodexes and phones with 30-foot cords on them, you know, and licking stamps and all of those sort of things that we grew up with, that the new generation has no concept of. Their life is so much different now. And I agree with you 100% there, old McDonald. What is she doing back there? She's making some.
No, she's making some weird noises. Stop it.
All right. Yep. Let's see here. I just started reading Start Where You Are. I bartered some jelly for it at Midwest Preparedness Project. Start Where You Are. Yeah, that sounds like that's probably a pretty good read as far as from the standpoint of getting your act together, huh? I haven't heard of that book, but yeah, it's probably pretty good. Laura says, I used to enjoy running. Now I'll cheer you on to watch. Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not everybody's cup of tea, man. I mean, it's just not. Yeah. Not a runner. Miss competitive sports though. Yeah. I'm actually pushing myself beyond my limits to accomplish the goals for this year's plans to harvest. Yeah. As I said, it doesn't have to have revolve athletics. It just has to do with developing some form of, stick to itness and wanting to be growing and be better and all those sort of things. And, it's just, that's what I gravitate toward, because those are the people that I actually look up to. There's a lot of people that have made things and been very successful, but I tend to gravitate toward those that are more physical from my what?
Oh, I was going to say, for me, one of the things that, and this goes back earlier in the video as far as the things that are happening here, but I'm also not freeze drying, but dehydrating herbs. And hopefully we'll put those on the webpage as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That'll be kind of cool. Yeah. We got plenty of those to be prepping right now.
Yeah. They're getting out of hand.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Loco says, when there's no light at the end of the tunnel, on the verge of nothing left, your why will push you over the top, mind over matter. Yeah. You got to know your why, man. It's there's just so many different things you could be doing with your time. And if you don't know why you're doing it, you're going to find other reasons to either not do it or do something that's more important. Let's see here. I started long distance running just for exercising mental toughness. So I agree with, yeah, it's very therapeutic for me, like I say, and I didn't like it years ago, but it's one of those things that when you train your body and you condition it to the point where things don't hurt when you go out there, you're just going through the motions, and you can think about things. It's an opportunity for me to just think, with no distractions, just kind of work out issues and daydream. And I will have run a couple of miles, 3 miles, and I'll be like, I didn't even realize I was running right there. I was thinking about other things. I'm working issues out.
Yeah, that hurt's still there though.
Huh?
That hurt is still there though. You just are not thinking about it.
No, that's not true, because
that is, you come in and go, my back kind of hurts me.
It depends on the workout and the day and the volume and all of those sort of things. I'm just talking about just a regular standard, go out and run, what I was running when I was training. 10 miles a day is what I was doing. That was standard. And I'd go out and do that every day. And it was like, okay, whatever, go out and do it again. It's just like you condition your body to do that, and it can accept it. And it's not something that's like, oh, I'm sore the next day. And that's a part of that discipline. That's a part of that training, and it's like that with everything. Dean Mullis in the house, man. Last time I ran, a bull was involved. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Mountain biking's cool, man. I used to do a lot of mountain biking. Now I shoot a bow. Yeah, mountain biking's cool. I don't do a lot of that though. I don't really like falling off of bikes too much, but getting older, I got to stay closer to the ground and go a little slower. The next thing I wanted to touch on was, mindset and visualization. And I think that's what successful people share in common, is having the ability to combine, a positive mindset, which is going to promote success in their own mind. And you combine that with visualization. And the visualization technique is something that I've heard a lot of athletes talk about, because, they're involved in like repetitive activities, whether it's, chipping the golf ball or shooting the ball through the hoop, it's something that they just visualize because of that repetitive motion and that activity. And having that positive mindset is something that can really benefit everyone. And it goes back to what I said before, that the biggest obstacle, generally speaking, for most people is the mental rather than the physical. And successful people have been able to master the mental game. One of the ways I think that they master the mental game is actually putting in the work when nobody's looking. Because when you do the work ahead of time, you're able to perform when it really counts. A very simple sports analogy would be, Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. Two guys that I look up to from the standpoint of work ethic, athletically, that they just had it going on. And, they might take 40 shots in a game, but how many shots do you think it took in practice for them to develop the skill for those 40 shots? Hundreds of thousands. So when they take the shot, they already have the understanding that they've been there and they've done that before. And so that's why it's just being able to visualize that success. And I can totally relate to that, because when I'm out there sometimes training, just running, and I'm visualizing about the race that I'm training for. And I'm thinking about how I feel right now is how I expect to feel at mile 70. That's how I want to feel. Or that's what I hope. Right. But it's a visualization thing where you just kind of daydream and you're thinking about it, because I'll pull from other races. I'll pull from like, hey, when I had a great last 30 miles of that race, that's how I want to feel. And it's so gosh darn cool, man. I mean, I can't express it enough. So I can see that when they talk about it, because I've heard, like, I don't know if it was Michael or Kobe or somebody was saying, says, when I was shooting the ball, the basketball, it was just going in, because the hoop, to me, it seemed like it was twice as large as it was in practice. And that's when they're in that zone, they're just like throwing it up there and it's just going in. And that's from that visualization technique and having that positive mindset. So what do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
I would say that it's definitely relating to running and even swimming, because I'm more of a swimmer than I am a runner. That when you're in there and you're putting the laps in, or you're running and you're putting the laps or the miles in that regard, it definitely is easier to have your mind think about something else.
Mm-hmm.
And then it surprises you how far you've gone when you do think about, hey, maybe I'll check my watch. Or
Yeah, well, again, it's just, visualizing your success. I think that's really important. And if it doesn't have to, again, be around sports, but if you're involved in something, whether it be your business or what have you, you're building your entrepreneurial effort, you're building your whatever you're doing. If you can visualize it, if you can, in your own mind, grasp a hold of that and then translate it into something as far as from a result standpoint, that's what the successful have the ability to do. Curiosity is another important trait of the highly successful. I think that if you're somebody who's constantly seeking out new ways to improve, or innovate or educate yourself. And if you're not doing that, those that do have that ability will surpass you. Companies like Montgomery Ward, you remember them? Sears and Roebuck. Who else? Toys R Us, Circuit City, Mervyn's, all of those stores.
Kmart.
A lot of those stores were around for a century or more, and they're now gone. And that's because they failed to have curiosity. They failed to realize that, they didn't embrace this new emerging technology, and they failed to innovate with the times. And so if you're going to be successful, you need to be able to be forward thinking, and that comes with curiosity and be willing to learn and to stretch your boundaries. And that's what the successful have, right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that guy? He was a dude. You guys probably have heard of him. His name's Jeff Bezos, and he actually started this book club. And it was unsuccessful for about 20 years. He was in the red for like 20 years. I saw an interview that guy did, and the guy that was interviewing was kind of almost mocking him, like, you're still doing this book club. I mean, you're taking out loans and you're not turning a profit. What's the deal? And he's just like, well, I got this idea and this vision, and it's coming together. And so that's the guy that put all these other businesses out of commission, but he was forward thinking enough, and he had that curiosity to go out there and try something. So, I don't know.
So that's sticking with it.
Yep.
And determination.
Let's see here. I got to see what Skane says. I'm busy getting ready to embark on the next chapter of my life. Visualizing your goals is important. I have several whiteboards. One for short-term, one for long-term goals, updating those now. Yeah. Developing lists are pretty cool. I mean, that definitely keeps you focused. I don't always develop lists. I'd probably be better off if I was, but I also like a little bit more freedom, I guess, in my day. And I have the flexibility to do that, I suppose. One of the lists that I do develop is just at the start of the year, where I'll have some broad goals of things that I want to get accomplished within the year. And it's not a New Year's resolution or anything like that. They're just goals that I have, that I've set for myself, that I want to try to achieve. And then I go back throughout the year and I kind of revisit those. We revisit them like quarterly to see where we are with our progress. And that's what I do. But it sounds like you're tightening things up. That's cool. Look forward to hearing more about your next chapter and your success.
Absolutely.
For certain. Let's see here. Both Kobe and Jordan practiced all day. Yeah, Kobe was like, why the fuck am I going to pass that guy the ball? He shows up late for practice. He says, I'm out here all day. I'm here long before practice starts, putting in the reps. Why am I going to pass him the ball? And man, what an incredible player. And he was a really smart, gifted person, talented in so many different ways other than basketball. And it's just a shame he had to end early like that. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Yeah, those dudes, man, again, visionaries, right? I mean, it's pretty incredible when people are able to take something like that and, hey, I got this idea, and they start a couple dudes on a computer in a bedroom, and then it goes to the garage, and then it goes to the warehouse, and next thing you know, they're the richest people in the world. It's kind of crazy, but definitely of the most successful among us for sure.
They are.
Let's see here. Another important characteristic of successful people is not being afraid to take risks, but also being patient. It really does seem kind of like those two things are at odds, but people who are successful need to possess both, in my opinion. Risk take, huh?
I said,
Right. Yeah, well, it's true. Risk-taking behavior isn't always negative. it's kind of a fundamental part of our survival as a species. And it's led to the exploration of this country, right? And around the world, and innovation and progress. But on the other hand, successful people also need to have the patience, or they'll never see any of their goals mature. Because everything of any consequence that's worth time, or excuse me, that's worth anything, it's going to take some time, right? The pyramids weren't built like in
I don't think we know how the pyramids were built.
That's true, but I can almost assure you that it wasn't built, in very short order. I think it took some time, and it took a number of people to do that. Same with things like the Great Wall of China and all. Everything of consequence takes time, and so you have to have patience, but you also have that vision. So, yeah, I think that the majority of people have the skills necessary for them to be successful in life. But what do you think, Rebecca, is the thing that holds them back from not pursuing the best in themselves, from being successful or being the best that they can be?
Well, again, I have to go back to their childhood and the start that they have then, and what they're taught, that they can persevere, and not and this is where everybody gets a medal. And I think that kind of took the drive out of folks, and then brought in the expectation that they needed to. And so they didn't challenge themselves. It's kind of the same thing as when you go to a birthday party and you get a present for coming, a party favor.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was ridiculous too.
Mm-hmm.
And teaching the wrong message.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like I said, it starts at in the family, teaching your kids to have that drive, to have that goal, to have that want to be something and make something of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
to then carry that on into their adulthood, and go on and hopefully teach their own children.
Yeah. I believe that people are in many ways conditioned for being mediocre. And one of the ways that that's done is, you guys have probably heard of this, I don't know what you call it, phrase, analogy, whatever, but it's called either crabs in a pot or monkeys in a barrel. And it's like when you are trying to break free and you're trying to be successful, there are people within your circle or your community or your sphere of influence that'll try to pull you back down. When you hear people saying, "Oh, why are you doing that? Why would you want to do that? What are you trying to do that? Are you trying to act like somebody else or whatever?" And you see that a lot with, within ethnic communities. I think they tend to pull their own back when they see somebody acting outside of what they view that person should be acting like.
It's easy to let that tear you down.
Well, if you are that type of person.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's the sort of people that you're around, you probably need to get as far as you can from those people, or they're just going to tear you down. They're just going to pull you back down to their level. And again, I think we are conditioned for that mediocrity because we are in that comparison trap. We look around and we say, well, I'm it's good enough. Right. But again, going back to, if you were the worst on your block or the worst in your county, your house was how good would you actually feel about your situation? Right. I mean, wouldn't that make the majority of people reevaluate their position in life as far as their level of success? If they were to look around and everybody in their county, their house was better than theirs, their situation was better than theirs, they would be evaluating themselves based on who they put themselves around. So my point is put yourself around better people, and
then you'll strive to be better.
Right. Or aspire to be better people. Don't just be comfortable and, conditioned to be mediocre, which mediocre means unimpressive in quality. That's one definition of mediocre. But I don't know. That's one of the ways that people don't pursue their best. They get comfortable with just punching the clock, right? They just go to work, they do their 40 hours, they do their 40 to 50 hours with the man, and then they come home, and then they've got their 2 days off where they can sit around and drink beer and watch football. And that's just punching the clock in life. You know, I've heard people talk. In fact, it was Jack Spirko. He's got a little saying. He talks about wasting your dash, and essentially what that refers to is we all have a dash. We all have a start date, and we all have an end date. Everybody has that, but it's that dash in the middle. What do you do with that dash in the middle? Are you going to just keep ticking off the years and being the same every year from this point forward, or are you going to try to actually do something with your dash?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so many people just get locked into that. Oh, I'm good enough, right? And I don't know. There's something to be said for being comfortable with who you are and not having to feel like you need to strive, but be the best that you can be, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Be successful in yourself, and not that you're a millionaire or whatnot. You need to be successful with yourself and your accomplishments,
Right.
and then strive beyond that, you know. And you always take, well, as I would teach the kids, take one thing at a time, check it off, move on to the next, check it off, and just keep going.
Yeah. I agree. 100%. You know, be the best that you can be. And you got to keep that everything in check as far as comparing yourself and never being happy with yourself. You have to be able to be comfortable and happy with yourself, but know that you can continue to grow along the way, right? And through life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a number of different ways to describe successful people, and these are just some of our observations. And I did do a search to see what I would come up with an AI, asking artificial intelligence, hey, what are the defining traits and characteristics of a successful person? And this is what it came up with. It says a successful person is somebody who sets and achieves goals, but the definition of success varies. Some see it as happiness and fulfillment, while others focus on status and accomplishments. Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah, I would fully agree. And then these are just some of it had 15 different traits, and I'll just rattle them off here. Leadership, self-confidence, aspiration, drive, patience, discipline, communication, integrity, willingness to learn, responsibility, self-reliance, optimism, and passion. Oh, there's a couple more here. Creativity and resilience. So what do you think of that? Those are pretty solid, right?
Those are pretty solid.
Yeah. And again, those first ones were just kind of my observations and what we discussed, and that made sense to us. But this is what the computer came up with. And, you know, of course, computers are pretty smart, and they're much smarter than...
I don't know. There's sometimes she likes to say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Can you please restate that for me? Maybe reword it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Let's see here. I need to get caught up on some questions. Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, Loco says vision boards are awesome. I made my first one about 25 years ago. That keeps the dream alive by instilling my why. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. 20-something years if I block was placed one every minute. I don't know what that means. You're not Wonder Woman? I am not Wonder Woman, as my mom would remind me.
But you can tell her you sure can try.
We just saw Wonder Woman the other day on TV or something, didn't we?
Oh,
Was she in a
it's the
movie?
most stupidest movie ever.
Oh yeah, she was in this dumb hole. What was that movie? Super Troopers or something?
Super Troopers 2.
Yeah, it was stupid or retarded.
How do you know? You fell asleep through them all.
I
He's
haven't-
never seen the end.
I've
Never seen the end.
Never seen.
I've seen it. I can't tell you how many times.
Oh man. Yeah, Skane says that's spot on. There's more sheep in New Zealand than people. Huh. Yeah. Crab mentality is strong here in the local society. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how people want to they it's almost, I don't know if it's jealousy or what it is, but certain people feel threatened when other people want to succeed. And again, I think those type of people, if you come around people like that discourage you from the things that you're trying to do, you need to try to disassociate yourself from those people, because they do have an effect on, your pursuit of the things you want. Right. So yeah, mental toughness, discipline, consistency, take risks, surround yourself with better people. I'm going to write all this down. Yeah.
So for me growing up, I was always the shortest.
Mm-hmm.
And we always had to line up in line. And my last name, alphabetical order, my last name at the time was always right at the end. So I was the shortest. I was at the end, and I got picked on a lot. And I could have taken that, but I don't know. I didn't.
You fight back? Did you
you
fight
have
back?
to find your orneriness and just not let that drag you down. So I'm just using that as an example with life in general, is that you just can't let it drag you down.
Yeah, I think a lot of people.
Oh, on top of that, I'm left-handed too. So.
Oh man, you got a lot of problems.
I do.
What's going on? Lefty? Artificial intelligence is getting too intelligent. Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's pretty woke too. They've got a lot of things that they don't allow you to ask questions about, or if you ask questions they don't want to answer. That's what Rebecca was referring to. I don't understand you. What? Ask another question. And so that's kind of fun to do sometimes. Go on there and see what kind of a response it'll give you if it's some kind of a thorny issue, and it just won't even go there. So it's pretty fun. Funny. Yeah. Yeah, she's a scrapper.
I had to be. I didn't have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys are somebody who, I guess, want to get the best out of yourself, which I think we all do, I would just encourage people to, again, put yourself around other people who are going to elevate you and inspire you, because, it all falls back to that comparison trap. And if other people around you are doing great things, you will naturally want to be successful as well. Wouldn't you say? Yeah. Well, let's get to the liberal or conservative, and I will read the quote again. This is a political figure. This is one of our esteemed representatives in the United States Congress, and the quote that he had, this was the quote. It says, "As to freedom, it is cherished. It is hard to come by. It is hard to hang on to. But freedom without responsibility is chaos. So those who push the idea that freedom would allow an individual to do anything, anywhere, at any time, I reject. Your freedom ends where my ability to raise my family safely begins. So I would urge every American to vaccinate their children, and I would reject any effort to stop vaccinations until somebody can show me a scientific reason to do so." Now, Rebecca said that was a liberal, and she might be right, because it is actually South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham that said that. And so, yeah, I think he's probably pretty liberal based on a lot of his positions that he's taken. However, he is representing the Republican Party out of South Carolina. And so, one thing I would just say about this sort of thing is I think it's important to not forget what these people have said, forget what these people have, done and their votes that they've cast and things like that. I know that it's also very hard that if, in fact, you were somebody that was in South Carolina, it would be very difficult for you to get rid of this person and vote them out because of the unfortunate reality of our political system involves a bunch of special interests. And who knows if your vote will even count because of all of the money that's being thrown toward these candidates to get them reelected. And he's definitely burrowed in like a tick, like all the rest of them. And he's sucking the blood out of the American people as it relates to, the money that is being tossed around that these people think is theirs, but they're not really representing the people themselves. They're doing the things that they're doing. So I can't speak for South Carolina, but if you're happy with your elected representative, certainly vote them in. That's what I would encourage you to do. But I would also encourage people to pay attention to what is being said and pay attention to what's been said in the past, because these people have long records that date back years and years and years, because again, they are ticks and they are parasites that you really can't get rid of once they burrow in.
So I have to answer Skeen's girl,
Okay.
where she said that left-handed people are in their right mind. Well, I was in a biology class, and of course, one of the questions is they want you to list what's on the right side of the brain and what's on the left-hand side of the brain. And of course, I crossed them. So I got that answer wrong. But I challenged the professor because I was a left-handed person. And what I wrote down was correct for my brain. So I ended up getting that question correct.
Go. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not the way my brain works.
Yeah. Left-handed people. That's like 10% of the population, isn't it?
It is. I don't know how many people are actually just right left-handed and how many people are actually completely left-handed. I am all left-handed. Everything. Yeah. I use scissors upside down.
Yeah. Yeah. Old McDonald. Yeah, there's a lot more evidence now. This, I think, was pretty early on when those sort of things were being said. And, of course, he got his injection and his boost and all that sort of thing, but he also got the vid. And so it's kind of interesting how, many people were told what would happen if, and how safe they would be and they wouldn't get this or they wouldn't get that. And then, of course, the narrative changes over time that, oh, well, it could have been much worse. And, this is the, reason why you were able to stay out of the hospital or whatever it was. But there's also a lot of people who chose not to get that had no problems at all, really had, maybe got COVID or whatever. And I think we've had it a couple times, it's whatever. It's not too cool. If I was a fat, overweight, out of shape person, it probably would have affected me a lot differently than it did. But, being able to withstand that sort of thing and stuff wasn't so much a problem for us or a lot of people that I know that didn't get the thing.
No, but I think it kind of dragged us down, but we continue to move on.
Yeah. Yeah. I had something not too long ago, like, I don't know, it was like a month and a half or so ago. Yeah. It was not cool. It was not good, but came and went. That's the way it goes, man. Viruses are a thing. And, yeah, let's wrap it up tonight. I appreciate everybody coming on and hanging out with us for about an hour and 38 minutes. And I think that's all we got. Do you have anything else you wanted to?
I don't think so.
To touch on?
I think we covered it all that we were going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, and just remember, guys, we do have the farm store available at porterhouseandteal.com, and I just put that soap back on. So if that's something you are thinking about or would like to try, go on there and give us a look. And we can, also too, you can catch this rebroadcast on the podcast platform on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, and Audible. And the real good thing about that is that there won't be any ads on it. So if you want to just listen to the audio version of that, click on over there and check it out. And you won't have to listen to any YouTube ads. But I do put a couple of ads on this live stream and stuff when I upload it. So if you were here live, you don't have to hear any ads because I don't run ads while I'm doing it live. And I will turn on monetization after this broadcast. And if you're listening to it rebroadcast in the future, you might want to check us out over there at Spotify. So again, guys, I hope you have a great week. Sylvia Gibson, have a great week. Old McDonald, have a great week. And thank you, Laura, for joining us tonight, Skane's girl, and all the rest.
Yes, thank you all for dropping in.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
Okay, we'll see you.
Have a good evening.